Let's see. I would say the first time that I had someone establish a healthy boundary with me was my boss from Reach Global. I worked for a mission organization in the cities, and she became a really good friend. We were growing together and hearing God's voice and just really encouraging each other. Well, when I moved to Sioux Falls and she was still in the cities, I still wanted that relationship. I was single, going to grad school, but didn't have a lot of demand on my life, and she was married, had a family, working a full-time job. And I remember calling her once I moved here just to talk. And Lindsay answered the phone, and what's amazing is I had so much respect for her. She said, Jess, I would love to stay in a relationship with you, but I know that I do not have what it takes to invest in our relationship. And to most people that would be like, ouch, I'm not good enough. But really what Lindsay was exercising was, I really know my boundaries and I know my priorities, and if I invest in our relationship, something else will get weeded out. And so I just left that, and it's funny how the question of like, man, you don't measure up, Jess, was really the enemy's little whisper, but then the Lord so gave me a taste of like, I really appreciate her honesty. How do you love when people choose honesty and suddenly, instead of ignoring phone calls, blowing you off, suddenly things rising up to try distance that relationship. She truly was honest with me and just said, in this season of life, I'm not able to invest in our relationship. And ironically enough, I talked to her this week for the first time in years, and she doesn't even remember doing that to me. I said, I am going to use you on Sunday. And she's like, Jess, I did that? I didn't even know I did that. I was like, what? This is like a big deal for me. So it's just funny, and now she's in relationship again, but it really shows how those boundaries and how those relationships change over time. And one of the things that Lindsay did really well is, I'll talk about that, she was on the offense. So there's offense and defense, and offense was being aware of the situation and establishing a boundary up front and not allowing time to go past, and Lindsay starting to ignore me, making excuses, I'm sorry, I'm really busy, I can't talk right now, or even becoming crabby or resentful when my name shows up on the phone. And so that would be more the defensive work, is becoming defensive as situations happen. But she was on the offense, and I think it's the most beautiful thing to do, because how many would say that when you experience honesty and transparency and people genuinely wanting to be true to themselves, it's refreshing, right? And it's very rare. And so that's just one piece that I just was given a taste of what that was in healthiness. And some of the examples of that are when people ask to hang out or do something or serve here. It's, I would love to do that, but I committed to be home and do breakfast with my family on Saturday morning. Or, I am free to do this tonight, but I just really need some alone time. And, wouldn't you respect that? Just really that honoring others, but really staying true to what the Lord has called you to, or, Lord, what do I need? There's often mornings where I wake up and I'm like, Lord, what do I need today? And sometimes he's like, you just need rest. You need rest. And it's as simple as that. So listening to the Lord and what you need. Another example, and this is just a small one that I found kind of humorous, is there's different layers of people, and actually maybe I'll go back to this and I'll draw this diagram. So if this is our boundary diagram, there's room for only one person in that inner circle of intimacy. This is the one who knows you the absolute best in the world. It's the Lord. And only the Lord can fit in that. He created you. He knows you past, present, and future. He is the one and the only one who can fit in that inner circle. And so we'll put the Lord here. And then that next ring is often, but doesn't have to be, is your husband or spouse or best friend or sibling. It's that person that in the human form you're the most intimate with, you share the most with, you're most connected to. But there can only be one person in that one as well. You could have a couple people that you're very close to, but there's always this one that feels that in the human flesh, I am the closest to you. And so there's one there. Then we get to a farther out ring, and more people can fit in this. And this is oftentimes, if you're living in a home, this is oftentimes children, people who you share a home with, who you share food, living quarters. These are, let's say you have 3 kids. They don't sleep in the same bed with you, hopefully, or they're not on this level or even this level, but they share and do a lot of life with you. They really know the behind the scenes you and the in front of people. They know all ways with you. Then we get out here, and this is probably, I'd say, close friends. Close friends, people that you maybe do life with, and who know a majority of your DNA. They know about you, and so you can fit quite a few people in here. And as you go outside the ring, the people you fit get greater and greater. And as you get closer to the center of the circle, these people require more of your intimacy. And so let's say out here is everyone else. Actually, I'll take that back. These are people that are acquaintances, maybe coworkers that you're not close to, maybe people that you see at the gym but you've never talked to. There are people just in this world that maybe you like or you haven't gotten to know to, but they would be someone who you maybe know their name or something. And then the last circle, way out here, how many know that the Lord says, love your enemies? There's room in your boundaries for enemies as well. And how many know that we're not supposed to shut off our love to our enemies, right? They don't have access to us. Before you have coffee with them, you really start thinking, what kind of boundary are they in? But you love them from afar. And so there's even a place for your enemies or people that you would not do life with. And so this really shows, and the closer you get to the center of Jesus, who requires and who is worthy of the most of you, they require the most from you, if that makes sense. And so that's why you can't have these people in here. And a lot of times when relationships get strained or broken or stressed, it's because either you are treating out here as intimately as this, or here with your kids and with your husband, you are dropping things to help out here. And oftentimes the hardest is in ministry, right? Because suddenly, it's my kid's birthday, but I get a call that someone's having a tragic disagreement with their spouse and they may get a divorce. Okay, when you look at this with emotions, you would want to say, oh, there'll be more birthdays, or my daughter will understand, I'll get home tonight and help her out. But in reality, when you think of this, guarding your boundaries would say, I really want to help you, but I'm going to have to wait to be able to see you. Because I made plans with my family, and they're more of a priority. They're up the ring, and so you delay that because pretty soon the message sent to your kids, the message sent to your inner circle is, theoretically I'm supposed to matter, but my actions aren't following my words, right? And so it's hard as you think about those situations that happen. Let's see here. And as you look at this diagram, people will not always stay in those rings. You will realize seasons of friendship with that Lindsay who told me that she no longer could invest in a friendship with me. There is a season where I didn't have children and I didn't have a husband, and so I would have put Lindsay practically on almost the inner circle. I was so vulnerable with her. Her and I were just close and did a lot together during that season. But when I moved here, we didn't really keep our friendship going, and Lindsay moved down about here. So pretty soon, we weren't sharing those intimate things. We weren't investing our time, and it gave room for me to meet new people and other people to move closer to that ring. And so it's funny how they're not established for good. And really, if you think, Jesus had great examples of layers. And so we can look on the inner circle. Obviously, God was there. He did what the Lord said. He did what the Father said. He only said what the Father said, and he was the greatest one that determined the decisions that Jesus did. The very next ring was John. Do you remember that John was the beloved? John was the one that Jesus loved. And so he got the next ring of intimacy with Jesus. And then outside of that, you saw that Peter, James, and John got even another layer of access to the Lord. And so even though he had these 12 disciples, he even broke them down with the boundaries of what kind of access they got. And so we have Peter, James, John on that third ring. The 12 disciples on the next ring, they got to do life with Jesus. They got to learn from him, reap on his wisdom, exercise the gifts and the anointing the Lord gave them. And then everyone else was outside of that. Jesus chose one nation. And so you can see that he gave us a great example of how that was lived out in his life. He didn't put people in place of his disciples. He chose 12. And so it really was done very well in the example he gave us that we live out as well. So how do we really manage these? I'm giving an example that's kind of funny, but it really tells kind of boundaries in a symbolic way. I've had these earrings for a long time. You can tell because they're hung on something like this, they're probably not real, right? You wouldn't buy these at Target or anything, or you wouldn't buy these at a jewelry store coming on a piece of plastic. And so if I had these here and I just kind of tossed them down like this, no one would think they're real, right? They're probably cheap, don't carry a lot of value. Now if these go from here to, I take them off the plastic thing, I put them in a clear, let's just pretend that this is like a locked box. So you can see them, but they're locked and you'd be like, there's some value to them, right? You can see what's in there and it's locked, so there's probably some value. Then you put these in a box where you can't see them with the lock. You're probably like, ooh, no one should be even tempted to steal this. You don't even know what's in. So it must carry really great value. Then there's the bank. If you put it between a steel vault and the bank, probably a lot of value, right? A lot. And so no one's seen it. It's under quite a few people. Not even many people journey there. And then there's, how many of you have seen Mission Impossible? I really like those movies. And so in Mission Impossible, there's always the goal is to get the treasures or wherever the things that no one can break into this building. It's unbreakable to get in, and somehow they always get in. Well, if that's the case, you're like, whoa, the value on that is crazy, crazy valuable. And so you can see as boundaries are put on even things that are valuable, there's different levels of it. And so as I look at those boundaries, the enemy knows that when we put value on something, what he wants to do is tear down boundaries. Isaiah 10:13, where the king of Assyria says, I've removed the boundaries of the people and robbed them of their treasures. So I've put down the inhabitants like a valiant man or a warrior. And the enemy's strategy really is to remove our boundaries. Because if we do not know we have boundaries, the enemy is going to steal, kill, and destroy. But if you have boundaries and we don't mend them and take care of them, the enemy will drain and confuse your priorities and make us feel like a victim wore down. And I know there's a time where I was feeling overwhelmed and I wasn't doing well with boundaries. And I remember playing a victim, being like, I just feel like pieces of me are going everywhere. Well, that was no one else's fault but my own. And so it's so easy to feel like a victim when life is wanting to pull you so many directions. So how do we set firm boundaries? And I say firm boundaries in an aspect of having an outlook of how you want to do that, all within the capacity of, Lord, if you change this and break it, I just want to be obedient, bottom line, right? So these aren't hard and fast, but these are ways that we can start to establish them. And I just pray God would highlight what that means for each one of our lives. And the first one to begin to set firm boundaries is just like the example of jewelry. We have to carry value and respect for ourselves, right? I think the reason I didn't have boundaries growing up and even into young adulthood when I was really